can you tell me something about your own journey, your spiritual journey, where it started, how it evolved, and where you are today?
I would say that I always had a what I would call a divine discontent. When I was younger, I did not know what that really meant, but I always felt there is something else happening in life. And then, of course, I got married and we had a child, and started doing groups in the 70s, you know. And when we had a daughter, and then for the first time, I was very young. We were both very young and very unexperienced, no idea. And then I realized that when you have a child, you have to give 24/7. You know, a child is a total commitment. I had no idea, really. You kind of... So, and then I just looked at myself and I saw I don't really... The love that I am asked for, I don't have myself. And then I started to do therapy, and then we ended up doing the first groups in the 70s. 70s groups were very, very new. It was like I did the first encounter group that a doctor, a friend of ours, went to Esselen, and he did in Munich, in town, the very first encounter group. And it was like a revelation. I cried for the first time, you know, hug people. I come out of, you know, much more of a stiffer and more withheld background, yeah. And that was like an absolute revolution. You know, my husband was more from an aristocratic family where everything is very structured and distant. So we then started to do groups, and then we did the first 9-month program. That was the fashion in those days. Everywhere in England, they did it, in Holland. And we were 20 people in a place called Zist in Germany. Beautiful place in the mountains. 9 months we did the same group, one group after the other. Gestalt, you know, bioenergetic, who's in, enlightenment intensive, whatnot. And then after the 9 months, I looked at it and I said, forgive my parents, forgive my mom and dad, but I felt like I still don't know how to die, you know. Then within 2 weeks, we packed up, bought an overland bus from our then little money, and went overland to India to find a master. I wanted to sit in front of somebody who can die. And anyway, we went up to Dharamsala, and that didn't work out. So we ended up actually in Pune with Osho, you know, Bhagwan then. And that was it. Sat in front of him, and I thought, yeah. I looked into his eyes, and we all three took sannyas the same night and packed up and been with the master since then.
So you found your master?
Yes. So we then packed up and lived in India, all three of us, and being completely immersed in the commune and into meditation. And within 3 days, you know, I was told to be in the group department and lead groups. I was like terrified. You know, I had a little bit of experience, but not that much, you know. And then I really learned leading groups in the ashram in many, many ways. What is fantastic learning, because you're created so many, you know, you always have full groups, people from all over, all the countries. You don't get paid, so there's no deal going on, you know. You don't have to please people because you need survival. It's just completely free. And that's how I really learned to work with people then. And in 81, my husband died very unexpectedly of an aneurysm in the brain, just like that, boom. And he was 33, I was 32. And of course that took me completely, you know, it shocked me. I did not expect that. It was like, no, of course I came because I wanted to know how to die, but I didn't know that that would happen, you know. So, and that was really the talking about pain of separation. So I felt almost, because, you know, we've been together for so long, so it was like when somebody that you love deeply dies, it feels like love goes
With them.
with
Yeah.
that person dying, you know. And then I always ask, what is really love? What is it, you know? It just is related to intimacy, to one person. But actually love is something bigger than that. So it, of course, put me into the inner quest. Anyway, then I stayed there until 94, until Osho left the body in 90. And there was the second time when and a very close friend of mine also died. And the second time where I felt like, oh, something about, you know, when that person that you devote your life to and love dearly suddenly goes, then what stays? And then anyway, I left the commune. I needed to be on my own. I wanted to get out of the whole thing. I needed to stand on my own feet. And a big learning, of course, you know, because I'd never even done that. And that's when we then started to, Rafi and I started to create the Path of Love. You know, what was like a process built around really that pain of separation. You know, and of course, when you're on the spiritual path, pain, you just basically watch it and move on. You meditate and move on. You know, don't give it so much significance. Yeah,
And that's what you did as well.
yes, and that's what I did. You know, for years. So, and then when we suddenly got in touch with this kind of work, then I suddenly felt like, oh, I gotta go really into the depths of my heart, because actually that pain is still there, and I cannot avoid it. You know. And that put me really into a whole different track with myself, a really different thing. Together then the trauma work came into life. You know, suddenly we talked about dissociated states, and I was like, oh, dissociation, yeah, that's me. You know, half of me is frozen, literally, you know, and I think it's deep meditation.
Yeah, the transcendent path.
Yes, you transcend, you know, and that's not wrong. That's also beautiful, you know, but I felt like there was a whole part of me missing. So then when I really went into, when we created the Path of Love and really looked into, you have to feel. And that was the big key. You gotta feel, and not just trying to bypass all that. You know, I think I was trying to spiritual bypass a little bit, thinking I'm so amazing and I meditated so long and I'm such an amazing devotee and all that identity, you know, that of course is so strong. And suddenly...
And we were also given that message by many of our teachers. That was almost like at different times where the teaching emerged from a culture there was no place for emotions, for feelings, would you say that that's how you saw it as well? And even probably in the community you lived, that was the culture of transcendence, correct? Even though the body was part of it, but...
Even though Osho had a lot of focus on the body, of course, you know, but not really on feeling, or at least for me it wasn't like that. I did quite a bit of work before that, but there was something about honoring that pain of separation. Instead of saying, no, it's fine, anyway, think of your teacher and or master, he'll be there with you, you know, blah, 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 blah. If you can't do that, it means you're not really a disciple, you know. So that created the big shift, and then we created this process around that. And then suddenly, when you come into the allowing that pain of separation, what cost me many, many tears, you know. I mean, it's not just like you see it and that's end of story. It is something that moved me, and then I could suddenly feel my mind and my heart get integrated. You know, once I open here, the integration starts to happen, and then I come into different spaces of, let's say, stillness, but it's not that kind of meditation stillness. It's a more warmer, more inclusive stillness, more essential, it's feelable. It's like precious or yummy, or the other one is more quiet.
And would you say that this process of dropping and feeling allowed you also to complete the grieving, that allowed you to actually grieve your loss?
Exactly.
That is...
That was a big part that I was allowed to really, for myself, to grieve, you know. The loss of loved ones, the loss of my own inner being, you know. We sell out for wanting to belong and wanting to fit in and wanting to be loved, and don't love really myself. I love everybody else, but not this, you know, this whatever that is, yeah? Turiya, whatever you want to call it, it's just a name.
And you spoke beautifully, today in your talk, you said this is the violence actually is here in us, the ways in which we reject ourselves is...
Then once you open that up, then you, of course you see that vulnerability then leads you, of course, also to the shadow side, you know.
Speak about the shadow. What do you see today in the... What is the role of the shadow on the spiritual path, and how do we meet it? How do we work with it? And in your work, how do you approach the shadow work?
And I relate it always to, if I'm not able to be vulnerable, vulnerable means to be there with both hands open, not just one hand open and the other one ready to hit, you know. If I'm really able to be vulnerable, what in itself is not easy. Most of us shut down, you know, you get abandoned, you get misunderstood, you know, people get abused, we go boom, we shut down, we go isolation. And then from that place to really see what is my own inner blind spot, or what is my darkness, it's very difficult to see. But I know, you know, you have, like I said, you have one look in the mirror and you go like, chuck, 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 you're too old, too fat, too ugly, whatever it is. And that's violence, you know, the way how I criticize myself, the way how I compare myself with everybody else. That's violence, it comes from the same place.
Which is what, when we don't feel it, it manifests outside of us.
And then we project it on the outside, you know. We project it on politicians, on people, on our boyfriends, girlfriends. We project, you know. We blame other people. Then we engage in negativity with each other. You know, we hate the colors, we hate the right wings, we hate the whatever it is, you know, but we become very opinionated and very judgmental. You know? Even if you become a vegan, yeah, you hate all the people who are not vegans. It's the same package. It's the same thing. Sounds good, but it's the same package. You know, you make yourself good and everybody else is bad. So I feel we have to look at that other side inside of ourselves, you know. If you look at what happens today, you know, how we really, you know, dishonor this planet Earth. Yeah, how we, you know, the whole climate change thing, we treat this planet like with violence to the max. Everywhere. Wherever you look, you know, even animals are extinct, you know, plastic, whatever it is, but we just treat this planet with so much disrespect. Where does it come from? You know, why can we not wake up and see that? And I think it comes out of that the darkness comes in through the back door in a way, you know. We hide the vulnerability, we hide our imperfections, and then we're trying to control the planet, you know. And that might be in the name of something good, but it's still, we're still interfering in a most beautiful place. It is horrifying to see, you know. Even today, you have, you know, the suicide rates on teenagers are tremendous. The whole the mental health situation is spiking up. You know, we have more and more people come to the groups who are really deeply in depression, That didn't used to be like that 20 years ago.
And why do you think that's the case today?
Well, I think because of that, on one hand you have the internet and a superficial connection, and then on the inner, I think people are very, very isolated. I think isolation is the biggest problem that we have today. People feel so isolated and don't know how to really open up with each other. You know, how to be vulnerable, how to be truthful, how to say, hey, hello, I would like to meet you. No, that, you know, we sit on the machine and we don't dare to be vulnerable. We don't learn those things also. Nobody, no school teaches you the essential. How to relate, how to become a mom, how to die, how to have sex. You know, what do we learn in schools? What is the highest mountain of Japan? I mean, who cares? But the essential, people don't get educated. How do the young people know how to connect? You know, how to be respectful to each other.
Yeah, how to feel with his body.
How to feel your own body. How to feel like, hey, this is a gift of God. You know, this is the most precious thing we got.
And in your work, so in the path of love, how do you approach the shadow work? Where do you even begin?
Well, we have one of the guidelines that we always use. It's like we say all the barriers are on your side. So that's it. So no matter what you see, it has to do with yourself, you know. So whatever you see on the outside, look, what does it have to do with you? If you project on somebody, what does it have to do with me? You know, so what do you really, it can only show to your inner. We deal, of course, with secrets, we deal with sexual secrets. The whole sexuality is so, you know, between porn and secrecy, and I mean, it needs to come out to the, people have to learn to be honest, to expose it, bring it to the light, clean up the house before you can meet. And that's what we do, and then slowly help people to see it. And of course, also you have your own willingness yourself to look at blind spot. It's not so easy, you know.
No, we beat all the strategies not to see.
Yes,
them. Our lives have been.
And then we judge ourselves for being that way, you know. Then we become opinionated. Things are like this, life is like that, you know. So we build our own boxes of righteousness, you know. It's very difficult to see yourself. And even I know when I become stressed out, what I tend to become overworked, I become very edgy and controlling, you know. Not so easy to accept. You know, you want to say so and so is like that, but not me. No, you know, I'm a good girl. No.
So inevitably, when you meet your shadow, you also meet we meet our traumas in that process.
Yes, very, very much so. You know.
So how do you work with trauma on this path?
Well, I think for me, of course, I love Peter Levine's work, and he's really helped me a lot. You know, but mostly trauma sits in the nervous system. It's not in the brain. It's not in the memory. It's in the nervous system. So help people to feel the body, you know, to slow down, sense the body, sense the body, and then slow down, and then slowly, 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 step by step, not overwhelm, you then unfold piece by piece whatever has frozen you or whatever is inside that is untouched or dissociated. It takes time, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a certain kind of, it has a slow rhythm. You know, it's not like the boop or Z. Of course, we want to fix. We want to go a cup of coffee, done. Trauma work is more like a slow process. But the main thing is feel into your body. Feel your body again. And it's always amazing to see how many people they think they feel, but they don't really feel themselves, you know. Once you feel it, the body itself has an incredible wisdom. It'll come together by itself. But you have to give it that much attention, and that much love and that much care.
And do you bring any sexuality into your work, or sexual energy? Is that also part of the?
We deal, of course, the sexual abuse. So many women are sexually abused. Once you open up the box a little bit, so many people will come up with that, And of course, we deal with it like in the trauma way, slowing down, allowing yourself to have boundaries, feeling safe. It's one of the main things. You need to feel safe. What creates safety? You need to feel nobody's attacking me. I'm not attacking you. So we create boundaries, safety, and out of that comes respect, and out of that then slowly, slowly the body starts to open, and then the healing starts to happen. Of course you have to deal with it. It happens, it's everywhere. It's unavoidable, it is there. But the beautiful thing is we now know how to work with it, In the old days we used to run over it and scream a bit and you're done.
Yeah. Also in the old days there was a lot of cathartic releases that now we know that maybe was not, it could be re-traumatizing at times.
Yes. So it needs that safety. Especially in Path of Love, we particularly orient towards safety so people feel safe. And then once people feel safe, especially women, but men also, men have also equally different kind of abuse, but also, then we show up. But if we don't feel safe, we won't show up. It's like in childhood, Just like that. I think safety is one of the main ingredients of working with sexual abuse. Safety and boundaries, and accepting boundaries, Not like as a therapist you have a right to run over their boundaries. No. You have to work with that,
So on this path, what do you see? What is embodied awakening? What do you see is possible for people on a spiritual path once you meet your trauma, once we meet our trauma, once we meet our shadow? What's possible? What is?
I think for me the main thing is to embody our humanness, to be really embodied and not trying to get away with it, but embody it with all its, whatever we have to face. Might be grief, might be sexuality, might be male-female issues, But for me the whole thing is about embodying and not trying to fix it. We want to fix it. We want to go boom, 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 done. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. No, embody it and then slowly let that embodiment become bigger and bigger. And then, of course, the spirituality comes out of a very natural place. Spirituality is something very natural. We're always connected to all and everything. But if we allow ourselves to be embodied in the fullness instead of trying to get away, be here and live this life, face the challenges. If you're a father, take responsibility, be there for the kids. Face it, whatever it is. Just be with it, embrace that, and not trying to, mostly we want to get away. So that in itself is and then you become more bigger, and then there is less and less to escape. And then and then also my meditation is, I love prayer, of course. For me that's comes out of the depth of my heart. It's like out of that vulnerability you open up your hands to something bigger. It's not just me. There's something bigger there, and that guidance comes through that. So it's that alignment and the willing to take responsibility for this. What we each have to walk our path. What is each, your destiny, my destiny? It might be very different, but be with it and not trying to get away from it.
So you're talking about a living moment-to-moment spirituality that takes the form of where we meet our separation. That's how we separate ourselves.
Yeah, the whole thing is to always see it, am I separate or not? It's that simple. When I'm separate, I'm either in my mind or I pull up a little bit, because it's uncomfortable, or Am I here? Am I here or am I not here? So as simple as that. It's very, very simple. It's not complicated. It's just that it's not so easy to really embrace all that. And embrace all my different, the dark part, the beautiful side, the celebration, the whole catastrophe that we've been given.
And of course we both embody the masculine and the feminine.
Yes.
And yet, where is the work for women today and for men? How do you see it? Is there specific work that we need to do as women and men need to do as?
I feel, of course, because of the Me Too movement, there's a big shift. I feel probably I haven't seen so many men group happening, and I think it's fantastic. The men really need to look at their part. But of course, I'm a woman, as far as I know, is for what women have to really own up to is, like I said before, we got to come out of that victimhood thing, thinking we are victims, and I think women are master manipulators. We're very, very good at it, and we know how emotionally to get what we want. And we do it very indirectly, we do it with a lot of emotionality, but most women are not able to take responsibility for that. We want to be victims. We want to say the man is the bad guy. He is so aggressive, he is so whatever. We want to blame. Of course, victims love blaming. That's part of the victim identity. And just to take that and see the power of the victim. Once you come out of it, it's powerful. You see what you do, and then we can see we emotionally manipulate, and men, of course, do it more through their physicality. They also have their part in it, where they then act out or feel castrated and try to overpower women. So they have to do their part, but we have to own our part. It's not only the man who did this, And then also, on the other hand, I think the roles are so changing. If you, like I said before, if you look at how our parents or maybe your grandparents communicate with others, completely, they didn't even talk to each other. They were in roles. And today we communicate, we talk to each other. Man, male, female. So there's so much more possible also.
Yeah, relationships today is really a spiritual practice.
Yes,
with all
totally.
The tools we're given, and
it's a beautiful practice, and to really find that harmony between male and female, inside and outside. Above all, first of all, inside of yourself. Where you can allow your femininity to be there, and so that the male doesn't dominate you. Inside, and then same on the outside. But it's a challenge because it's so different than it has been 40 years ago, So we're all, I feel it's new territory, and we're all kind of looking and trying this and waking up to some new reality. I think it's fantastic. Also, it's very inclusive, even today with homosexuality, it suddenly is normal. 40 years ago, you used to go to jail in England. So it's a new understanding of what it means to be masculine and what it means to be feminine. So I think it's exciting times, and of course we have to do our homework. But I think if women can get a hold of their emotional power and see how powerful they are, in their victimizing thing. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to say that I'm happy for what you create here, because I feel like it's a mixing pot of different views, what it needs, and it's just exciting to see, people coming together and have an open-mindedness and are willing to look. Yeah, but I do feel we need some inner work. I don't think it's just about understanding about of course it's a fantastic change, but I think we need a bit more.
Yeah, that's how we started. We actually talked about it at the opening. The first 5 years was all about transcendence in our work, and in the last 5 years it's been really dropping into the body and learning about everything around shadow and trauma. So it's becoming very rich and alive, that once we turn in that direction, it became alive suddenly again, the community, the work.
But when you turn within, when you really go into the body, you come into the most amazing spaces. You know, you feel really embodied essence, essential qualities, and it's really amazing.
And it feels full, right?
Yes,
it feels
complete.
Full.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not so Spartan. Of course, I like meditation. I really love meditating. You know, my body needs it, and I like it. But at the same time, that embodiment is also an important ingredient. It's less driven than. It has more something softer and something more open, more accepting. And anyway, I think women's body are anyway more made for that. But I think because women, I have such an unworthiness thing hanging in there, because we always create the worthiness through the man. But I feel women as such have a much, if we would just relax into that and see the beauty of who we are and the roundness and the caring and the loving, that awakening can happen. But it'll happen like this, not like that. You know, that's how I experience it.
And where would you say is your growing edge? Still, do you feel, where is your growing edge? Are you still growing? Do you have a place you feel you're still?
Well, my growing edge is not to overwork. It's my growing edge, really, and to create space for not working, not doing, you know, to create space for just being.
I know very well.
That's for me the biggest challenge, really. And I mean, the work is happening and there's so much stuff, but it also, of course, keeps you always in the particular loop. And so when I go to Australia, I usually take time off and really let things be. It takes a while to fall into that. So that's one of the growing edges. And my other growing edge is, of course, aging. You know, so I just got 70 at the end of last year, and I was like, oh my God, how did that happen? You know, look in the mirror, I'm like, wow. So I feel aging. I feel a bit more like suddenly I have to prepare for dying. And how do I want to live those last years, months, days? So I feel a little bit more I have to live a life where I'm ready for that last passage. And that puts me really on an edge. You know, even in the meditation, it's not just like about relaxation, it's about facing death.